Hello, everybody. Obviously, a difficult time to be speaking to you all. It's a time of concern and reflection and action. We have strong values at the Celtics, and we are doing our very best to uphold them here. As you know, Ime Udoka has been suspended for the upcoming season for breaking team rules. For privacy reasons, I won't be able to offer many additional facts or circumstances around what occurred and why the suspension is in place. I really have to leave you with the wording of our statement, which was admittedly fairly crisp. You might notice I have notes here. I don't think I've ever had notes at a press conference. I enjoy speaking ad lib, extemporaneously, and letting things share freely, but in this case, I really have to refer to the notes and stay within the bounds, and I have to break it to you that if you had the notes in front of you, you wouldn't learn all that much. So it's sort of that type of press conference. I'm sorry for that. It's privacy reasons for the people involved is the concern. I can say a few things, and I have a few bullet points to add, and then Brad will have some words. I can say that as soon as we learned there was a potential situation, we immediately brought in a respected law firm to conduct a thorough investigation. And impartial investigation. And they took some time. And we actually concluded that investigation with a report 2 days ago. So that's the reason for the timing here. There were leaks, by the way, around that time. Obviously, we would have nothing to do with that and nothing to gain from that, and any insinuation about the leaks. We don't know where they come from. They're part of the NBA, as we all know in this room, but it's really unfortunate. And it's unfortunate also that female staff members of the Celtics have been dragged into the public eye unwillingly and inappropriately, and we take a strong stand against that and just regret it for them. It's really, really unfortunate and not necessary. I won't be referring to anybody else who might be involved here, again, for privacy reasons, and not going to get into the details of the conduct at issue. But I have just a couple more closing little remarks. Ime has personally told me in a private conversation, just the general theme was, I'd say, acceptance and appreciation for how this has been handled. He can speak for himself on that, and in his release last night, he did speak to that, that he accepted this suspension. Brad and I have both met with the players. Brad can fill you in more on that, but I would say in general they are very concerned about this. It's not a welcome development, but they also, I felt, have energy and focus and commitment and drive to really accomplish great things, hopefully this season. So that's the commitment I'm feeling from the players, and that based on last year and based on everything we know about them, I think that commitment will be fulfilled. The suspension is for a season through June 30th, and we will make a determination at a later time about Ime's future with us, and that'll be discussed another time and has not been decided at this point. I am concerned about the situation and its impact on everybody in the Celtics organization, and I do hope this represents the beginning of a new chapter and a chance to turn the page and move forward with things to some extent resolved. And I am personally very confident in the people we have here, starting with my partner and head of basketball, Brad Stevens, and everybody on the staff and the roster and the training staff and the front office and in the business office of the Celtics. We're going to stand together as a family, and we're going to move forward. And I'll turn it to Brad Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add from the standpoint of the, as Wyc said, what can be said about the violation. Ultimately, I would, reiterate that it was a long, thorough process, and obviously it's been a hard time. But I think, the only thing that I would like to say is that I thought, and Wyc mentioned it already, I thought, we have a lot of talented women in our organization, and I thought yesterday was really hard on them, and I think that nobody can control Twitter speculation and rampant bullshit, but I do think that we, as an organization, have a responsibility to make sure we're there to support them now, because a lot of people were dragged unfairly into that, and so I would just add that, and go from there. I know you'll probably have questions and comments, but I think that's important to address for them.
Take some questions.
What would have to happen post June 30th for you to revisit this situation? What would you have to see between now and June 30th?
We haven't made any decision about going forward or what criteria might be, so I don't have any substantive answer to that.
This is a question for either when did the team first become aware of Ime's potential violations of team policies, and how long did that investigation process kind of take to unfold?
Yeah, we learned over the summer, some part of the summer, that there was a situation, called in the law firm at that point, and the investigation had some twists and turns, and took some time to develop all the facts. And so it finally concluded. For now, everything we know was wrapped up 2 days ago.
Wyc, I know you can't go into a lot of detail, but a lot of people out there are saying this seems harsh, a whole year. Paul Pierce tweeted this should be a fine. Is there any information you can give us to open a window into how you came to this decision, and did it descend into sexual harassment?
So on the second part, I don't have the ability to venture into the conclusions of our legal analysis, but I would say on the first part, we have reflected as a group and with outside advisors and a diverse group, in fact, of people deciding really what to do, which I take ultimate responsibility for at the Celtics, everything that is decided. But I personally feel that this is well warranted and appropriate, backed by substantial research and evidence and facts. And so I'm standing by the decision, and Ime has accepted it and has expressed, in fact, appreciation. I don't want to belabor that, but he's been accepting of it, and he's planning to move forward on this basis. So we are suspending him for the year, and it's in place, and we're moving forward.
Brad, you expressed some frustration about that rampant speculation on social media and on Twitter about the many female employees within the organization. Did the Celtics have any internal communication with their female employees about how to handle what was obviously a very emotionally devastating situation for many of those employees?
Yeah, I mean, there was messaging sent out. There was meetings to make sure that everybody's available and supportive. But, I don't think that, I think we still need to make sure that we're there for a while beyond that. Like, it's, I just think that was really unfair in my opinion. And I don't know how we control Twitter. And obviously there's only so much that we can say. But our job is to support, and our job is to be there as everybody goes through the hard time, and everybody digests this stuff differently, obviously. But yesterday was unfair to them.
Is there anything that the Celtics organization, in your opinion, could have done differently in handling this situation to prevent some of the damage to the organization we saw yesterday? And separately, are there any other team employees who are also receiving any punishment for what has transpired?
So we have strong policies and procedures in place, like most businesses, well-run businesses in corporate America. We have probably very similar policies, and we have enforced them in the past, and we're enforcing them now. And I think this action will help remind everybody of the importance of the policies and procedures governing workplace behavior. And no comment on any other, there's nothing else being discussed.
Wyc, you talked about the meeting with the players and that they were concerned. Can you go into more detail about that? Obviously, they're going to go on with the future season without the coach, but are they preparing for long-term without Ime?
I'd like to, we're not going to talk about the long term because nothing's been decided, but if Brad wants to add any extra words to the discussions with the players, he might be the right person to do that.
You know, obviously there's a lot of sensitivity and confidentiality around, you know, the outside, you know, firm and their investigation and who knows. So a lot of people obviously were not aware that there was potentially going to be any change or anything that would be unique. And so that, you know, there's a real relationship there with a lot of guys, rightfully so. They, you know, had an incredible year last year. There is a personal connection. There's a care both ways. And so, you know, human beings are human beings, right? Like, that's going to be the way it is. And to think that, you know, guys are on the team or coaches or anybody else in the organization could just walk back out on the court and everything is fine. It's not the way it is, right? So, you know, I just think that this is a really, really tough situation. But we're gonna be forward focused. We're gonna be forward focused, as I said, with addressing what we need to address to make everybody, you know, get everybody ready to go on Tuesday when we start a new season. And I believe we will be, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that there are human emotions all over the place.
Wyc, just to follow up on Abby's question here, did you say you weren't going to comment on whether or not anyone else was punished?
Well, then I did comment. There's
Yeah,
nothing else contemplated. Thank you, Jimmy, for...
Yeah, okay. And so I guess what we're looking for is some information, reassurance that this wasn't a wider problem than just Ime, that there's a problem with the culture or the way this was addressed when it was first brought to your attention.
We think our culture is very strong. We're very proud of it, but this has shaken it maybe, or but I don't think there's a wider issue than what we've spent several months uncovering and then deciding what to do about. So I don't think it goes more broadly, but you know, that's our current thinking.
Wyc, what constituted a year-long suspension and not firing Ime?
That we're not going to get into our deliberations. This felt right, but there's no clear guidelines for any of this. This is really conscience and gut feel and being here 20 years, and I'm responsible for the decision, ultimately, although took a lot of advice from partners and like Brad and others, and we collectively came to this and got there. But this is it was not clear what to do, but it was clear that something substantial needed to be done, in my view, and it was.
Wyc, when Ime was hired, and Brad, I guess too, was he vetted for these kinds of violations regarding his work in other organizations? Are you confident saying this never went on anywhere else before he came to the Celtics?
Diligence.
Yeah, everybody that is an employee here goes through that vetting process. Obviously, you know, you always ask questions, and you know, he's got nothing but glowing remarks, and so yeah, I think that's a pretty consistent thing throughout anybody in the organization.
Brad, who's going to coach the team now?
Yeah, Joe's going to be in charge, you know, it's not an easy timing for him or the rest of the staff, but he's an exceptionally sharp and talented person, and I believe strongly in him and his ability to lead people, his ability to galvanize a room and get behind him, and his ability to like organize and understand all that comes with running a team during a season. He's got really good help on his staff. I think Damon Stoudemire, Ben Sullivan, those two guys are critical, in my opinion, to Tony Dobbins, Aaron Miles, DJ McClay. They've got a good staff. They've got a good group, and on down the line, and obviously Matt Reynolds. Those are the assistants that are all there, in addition to others. But they're a really good group, and they're going to need to pull together, and they're going to need to really support each other. But I believe in Joe's leadership, and again, with all of them bringing their strengths to the table, I think that this will be an unbelievable challenge. But it's also I'm really confident in the team and the coaching staff that's going to take the court on Tuesday. It's not what we expected, to have happened, but I'm very confident.
Two quick,
quick
just
follow-up.
Adam, okay, I was going to make 2 quick comments on that. One, when I came in 20 years ago, Red told me no assistance necessary, or maybe one. So times have changed. That was a long list.
Yeah,
But
they're
I
all
did get
really
to know.
important.
I did get to know out of all of them. I probably know Joe almost the best. This season on the road in the playoffs, we spent time together, more time, and having dinners and whatnot. And really, he is just passionate. He is just filled with energy and passion and thinking about other people and teamwork together. He was going out to Hawaii with his family, and I arranged for him to visit the SEAL team at Pearl Harbor, which I have a connection to, not having been a SEAL, and he spent the whole day with the SEALs, just soaking in the sort of the ethos, I think, over there. Maybe he'll talk about that, but it was he's a special guy, and that's just an example of who he is.
Brett, just a follow-up. Was there a point where you considered, almost for stability reasons, obviously you have great familiarity with this team, to step in and coach on an interim basis?
Joe's the best choice to do that, by a long shot. So, as you go through all this whole process, it all hits you. But I think that we have the best people in place to do that, and Joe is the best person to do that in our organization.
Brad Wyc, did you discuss, though, having those conversations about you taking over? And if you don't like the results, would you think about taking over?
Absolutely not.
We did have a conversation, a brief one.
Yeah, but I think the other part of it is
just wanted to make sure.
There's a lot of factors in play of why I wouldn't necessarily even want to do that. But I think that I do think that and I've told Joe this, I'm going to be there for him without stepping on his toes as much as he needs. But he doesn't need much. I believe in that strongly, and hopefully I can help him with any questions he has as he goes through it. But sometimes you just need somebody that's been there next to you to be able to go in and let your shoulders down and talk about what you're going through, and hopefully I can be that for him.
2 quick ones. Is the suspension paid or unpaid? And the statement alluded to violations, plural. Were there multiple violations, or can you elaborate on that at all?
We weren't planning to elaborate on either one of those topics, but the suspension comes with a significant I'll at least say a significant financial penalty when you net it all out. So that's an accurate statement. Very significant financial penalty, and multiple violations. There were a couple of violations at least. Yep.
Brad, this is your first coaching hire, so it's got to be a high level of disappointment. But when you hear things, and this is an organizational thing, a relationship that happened, what were those conversations with Ime like? Or did you have them to say, hey, Ime, things are getting out of control here? What was that like? Or were you completely taken by surprise? Or what was it like to have that conversation when you know the head coach you hired is not acting within the organization's desires?
I don't think I'm going to go into specifics, Gary, on that. I think the one thing that we, and Wyc refer to this is when we learn of any information, we are bound, and we initiated a independent firm to review it. And so the conversations after that, I won't go into the specifics of that.
A couple more questions, Dan Roach. A question for both Brad, kind of what you were alluding to, but also Wyc, you talk about this organization and how much pride you have in it. How difficult has this time been for everyone involved, you and all the employees, and kind of a thought on going forward with the Celtics organization?
Well, I think it's been difficult, and we need to see if we can take care of everybody who's been affected inside the organization, first and foremost. We need to uphold what Celtic pride and what the Celtics stand for, and we're trying to do that here. Our hands are basically tied. Once certain things happen, there's going to be a consequence, and that's where we are. But it doesn't, just doing that sort of stuff doesn't take care of the human side adequately, and so we'll be continuing to do that moving forward and taking a lot of time and care, legitimate, genuine care, to make sure that we take care of everybody affected.
I think you have to have empathy for everybody involved. I really do. And so it is a really tough time. There's no question about it. But I think it's important to be empathetic, again, for everyone. And that's the way I feel, because it's tough.
Abby, then Jared.
I have two. What is the definition of the suspension? Is Ime allowed to have any contact with the team? What is and is not allowed? And then basketball-wise, has there been some talk about adding a more experienced or someone with head coaching experience to the staff?
We haven't gone into a ton of discussions about adding to the staff. I think the staff checks a lot of boxes as is, but there may be an addition. But I believe that there are, we have several young coaches, but several of them have years and years of experience. I referred to Damon Stoudemire and Ben because I think that they have the most experience and are really, really going to help us in this. And I think they're people that we considered too. They're future coaches and head coaches. And as far as the communication with Ime, I'm not going to go into again the specifics of what is, how we're moving forward with that. But I will say that, he's got a lot of relationships and a lot of people that, as we alluded to earlier, there's, yesterday wasn't an easy day for a lot of people in a lot of ways.
So, Wyc, just to clarify, did the investigation determine that the conduct may have been harmful to anyone specifically, or just that inherently it violated policy?
Sorry, I'm not going to comment on the investigation, but we found there was enough there to take an action. Thank you.
You've been talking about the impact on women in the organization, so I'm just wondering, are you confident this incident doesn't signal a larger cultural issue that would affect them, and do you have any message for them? Another question I'm wondering about is the timing or the length of time that this investigation took, and as you started to get information, as I understand it, in the summertime, do you think you acted, are you confident you acted quickly enough to this point?
So on the first one, my personal belief, but as a man, but as the CEO of the organization, is that we go to great lengths, or appropriate lengths at least, to run the organization with the central core value of respect and freedom in the workplace from harassment or any unwelcome attention. And so isolated incidents or patterns, if they occur, may be isolated, or they may be a deeper signal. I personally don't believe that they're a deeper signal, but I will be personally talking to the members of the organization and making sure that that's the case. But this feels very much to me like one of a kind. But that's my personal belief, but I'll have to verify that.
Wyc, you said these procedures had been enforced in the past. Was this handled consistently with how those procedures were enforced in the past? And do you think this incident or incidents call into question what you may need to do in the future regarding incidents like this?
I think this incident came up. We spent every waking hour on it, and when it really heated up over the last month and or last couple weeks, and we made the appropriate decision. I'll just leave it at that.
Two final questions, Ben, Gary. I'm curious what conversations you had surrounding Joe Mazzulla's own past transgressions and how confident you are that those will remain in the past, I guess.
Yeah, listen, I've known Joe since he was with Maine with the Red Claws, when they were called the Red Claws.
Now the Maine Celtics, just for everybody's edification.
I don't know what year that was, but it was 13, 14, or 14, 15, one of those years. And then he became the head coach at Fairmont, and I brought him in to speak to our clinic and got to know him better. And then when we were considering hiring him as an assistant, I vetted that and the incidents when he was in college really thoroughly. And I will tell you this, I believe strongly in Joe's substantiveness as a person. I believe strongly, and he'll tell you, he's been very open with me about how those moments have impacted him as in every which way, and you can see it in the way he carries himself. You could see that for a long time. We've had years to get to know him. He's been working with us for 3 years. You know, you probably have seen articles that were written around that time that I'm sure that I read 3 years ago before I hired him as assistant. But I believe strongly that probably shaped him into who he is today in a really, really good way. But, you know, he'll be the first to tell you he's 110% accountable for that. And I'll be the first to tell you that I believe in him.
Final question, Gary.
I just want to clarify, no one else in the organization besides Ime Udoka is facing any penalty or reprimand, or even including the woman involved, or is that just private?
It probably, thank you, Gary, for asking. I was probably going to refer to the notes on that one and say it's private, but no, nobody else is facing penalty or reprimand.